Welcome to Echo of Crime YouTube channel. There are prisons where inmates count the days until release. There are prisons where inmates count years. And then there is a prison where time no longer matters at all. Deep in the mountains of Colorado sits ADX Florence, a facility so secure, so controlled, that even the U.S. government openly acknowledges its purpose: to hold people who are never meant to leave. This is not a place designed for rehabilitation. It is designed for containment. Once an inmate is sent here, freedom is no longer part of the equation. From the outside, ADX Florence looks almost ordinary. Low concrete buildings surrounded by razor wire, distant mountains in the background. But appearances are deceptive. Inside, the prison operates under a level of isolation unmatched anywhere else in the United States. Inmates are locked alone in concrete cells for up to 23 hours a day, every day, for years, sometimes decades. Meals are passed through narrow slots. Conversations are rare. Silence is constant. Each cell is built to remove control from the person inside it. The bed is concrete. The desk is concrete. Even the shower is built into the cell. Windows, when they exist, are narrow and angled toward the sky, designed so inmates cannot see other prisoners, guards, or the outside world. The goal is simple: no communication, no coordination, no opportunity. The people sent here are not chosen at random. ADX Florence holds inmates considered too dangerous for any other prison in the country. Some attack guards. Others led violent gangs from behind bars. Some were involved in terrorism or organized crime. Many were transferred here after proving that even maximum security prisons could not contain them. ADX is the final stop. But what makes this prison truly terrifying is not just the security, it's the permanence. Many inmates housed here are serving life sentences, multiple life sentences, or sentences so long they exceed any realistic human lifespan. For them, ADX Florence is not a phase. It is the end of the road. Former officials have admitted that the prison was built with a specific mindset. Certain people, once incarcerated, should never re-enter society. That philosophy is reflected in every detail of the facility's design. There are no programs aimed at reintegration, no preparation for release. The system does not ask who you might become, only how safely you can be contained. Over time, the isolation itself becomes the punishment. Former inmates and psychologists have described the effects as crushing. Without human interaction, the mind begins to deteriorate. Sleep patterns collapse. Anxiety increases. Some inmates report losing track of days, months, even years. In a place where every routine is controlled and every choice is removed, identity slowly erodes. Despite lawsuits and criticism from human rights organizations, ADX Florence continues to operate largely unchanged. Courts have acknowledged the harsh conditions, but have also upheld the government's authority to use them in the name of security. The result is a prison that exists in a legal and moral gray zone, accepted, defended, and feared. It is not a slogan. It is a description. ADX Florence was not built for hope. It was built for permanence. And for the people sent there, the sentence is not just time behind bars. It is the knowledge that the doors will likely never open again. This is where the story begins. Life inside ADX Florence is built around one principle: absolute isolation. This is where the reality of the prison becomes impossible to ignore. Inmates here do not experience prison the way most people imagine it. There are no crowded cell blocks, no shared meals, no social hierarchy built through daily interaction. Instead, life unfolds almost entirely in silence. An inmate's day begins alone and ends the same way. Meals are delivered through a narrow slot in the steel door. Guards rarely speak more than necessary. Recreation, when allowed, often happens in a small, enclosed concrete yard where the sky is visible but nothing else. No grass, no horizon, no human presence. The design ensures that inmates cannot see or communicate with one another, reducing even the possibility of connection. For many inmates, this level of isolation lasts not for weeks or months, but years. Some have spent decades without meaningful human interaction. Psychologists who have studied long-term solitary confinement describe it as one of the most severe forms of punishment the human mind can endure. Without conversation, touch, or normal sensory input, the brain begins to change. Anxiety increases. Depression deepens. Hallucinations can occur. Time loses meaning. What makes ADX Florence different from other maximum security prisons is that isolation is not temporary. In most prisons, solitary confinement is used as punishment or protection for limited periods. At ADX, it is the default condition. Inmates are placed here because the system has already decided they cannot safely exist around others, inside or outside prison walls. The inmates themselves come from many backgrounds, but they share one thing in common: the belief that this is where their story ends. Many are serving life sentences with no parole. Others have sentences so long that release is purely theoretical. Even inmates who hope to one day transfer out of ADX face an uphill battle. The process is slow, opaque, and rarely successful. Former prisoners have described the experience as a slow erosion of self. Without interaction, memories become louder. Regrets replay endlessly. Some inmates turn inward, developing strict personal routines just to survive mentally. Others struggle with rage, despair, or complete emotional shutdown. In a place where every movement is controlled, maintaining sanity becomes an act of resistance. Legal challenges have repeatedly targeted these conditions. Lawsuits have argued that prolonged isolation causes irreversible psychological harm and violates constitutional protections. Some cases resulted in minor reforms, especially for inmates with severe mental illness. But the core structure of ADX Florence remains intact. Courts have generally sided with the government, citing national security and institutional safety. It is not just the walls, the locks, or the guards. It is the absence of human life as we understand it. ADX Florence does not rely on violence to control inmates. It relies on silence, separation, and time, tools that do not leave visible scars, but reshape the mind nonetheless. This is the reality inmates face every day. And for many, there is no countdown to release, only an open-ended sentence measured not in years, but in endurance. For years, ADX Florence existed almost entirely outside public awareness. There were no interviews from inside, no television footage of daily life, and no detailed accounts from inmates who could freely speak. That silence was not accidental. ADX was designed to operate quietly, far from cities, far from attention, and far from scrutiny. But over time, that silence began to crack. Former inmates, attorneys, psychologists, and human rights organizations slowly brought the reality of the prison into the public eye. Lawsuits described conditions that went far beyond ordinary incarceration. Years of extreme isolation, limited mental health care, and an environment where psychological deterioration was not a side effect, but an inevitability. Some former prisoners reported that after long periods at ADX, they struggled to hold conversations, make decisions, or function in normal social settings. The legal system was forced to respond. Courts acknowledged that prolonged solitary confinement could cause serious mental harm, especially for inmates with pre-existing mental illness. In some cases, judges ordered limited reforms, improved mental health evaluations, slightly increased human contact, or transfers for inmates deemed too psychologically vulnerable. But these changes were narrow. The core purpose of ADX Florence remained untouched. What made reform difficult was the argument used to defend the prison: security above all else. Federal officials maintained that ADX housed individuals who posed extreme risks, people who had orchestrated violence from behind bars or attacked staff in other facilities. From the government's perspective, ADX was not about punishment, but prevention. Keeping these inmates isolated, they argued, protected lives. This created a moral standoff. On one side were security concerns rooted in real dangers. On the other were questions about humanity, dignity, and the limits of punishment. Could a society justify locking someone away in near total isolation for decades? At what point does safety become cruelty? And does a prison sentence lose legitimacy when it removes not only freedom, but the basic elements of human existence? For inmates inside ADX Florence, these debates often feel distant. Legal arguments move slowly. Court rulings take years. Policy changes, when they happen at all, affect only a handful of people. For most inmates, daily life remains unchanged. Concrete walls, silence, routine, and the understanding that release is unlikely. Some inmates have spent so long inside ADX that the idea of freedom has become abstract. Even if release were possible, many would face immense challenges reintegrating into society. Technology has advanced. Social norms have changed. The outside world has moved forward without them. ADX does not prepare inmates for re-entry. It assumes they will never need it. ADX Florence is more than a building. It is a statement about how America deals with its most feared prisoners. It represents the extreme edge of incarceration, where control replaces rehabilitation and isolation replaces hope. The prison still stands. The policies remain largely intact, and the debate continues unresolved. This prison has no way out is not just a description of walls and locks. It is a reflection of a system that decided some people are beyond redemption and built a place to ensure they never return. For those inside, time continues to pass quietly. Days blend into years, years into decades. And the question remains, whether history will remember ADX Florence as a necessary safeguard or as a warning about how far punishment can go when fear outweighs humanity.